Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Arthur. Welcome to WizeUp. Want to talk marriage today. It can be a bit of a tough row to hoe at times, right? On the other hand, does it have to be? Well, marriage can be pretty good too, right? And we all have a part to play in that. Want to chat about that today. Our guest joining us from San Diego, California today, Arlene Pellicane. I'm sure you know the name already. A conference speaker, a well-known author, and the host of the Happy Home podcast. And she's a wonderful author. Good book here. Her latest book is called Making Marriage Easier: How to Love and Like Your Spouse for Life. We're gonna like them. We're gonna like each other too, So, and it's also available at makingmarriageeasier.com or arlenepellicane.com. So, makingmarriageeasier.com. Not easy because it's not easy, but easier. Okay, so good to have you with us, Arlene.
So fun to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. So this is an encouraging book. So, if somebody's wondering, what's the book about? That's what I read it going, hey, this is encouraging,
Right.
So we could do this, right?
We can do this.
Yeah.
It really is meant for you if you are a newlywed and you're like, how do I do this marriage thing? Everybody says it's so hard, right? It's for you if you've been married for 50 years and you're just thinking like, you know what? There's always something new that I could learn about my marriage. So really anywhere in between. And they are short chapters to make you laugh. Mm-hmm. I hope that you will see yourself in the book. You'll be like, oh, that's so what my husband would do. Oh, that's so what my wife would do. And then really going back to those decisions that, hey, how can we make this easier? Are we making this harder than it needs to be? And instead of waking up with that question of like, oh, my marriage, what can I do because it's so hard, instead to say, wait, you know what could I do to make this a little easier?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and appreciate the short chapters as well. Some people, don't read long, maybe, and so it's easy to navigate that way. And you break it up into 4 parts, 4 decisions, and so that involves intentionality. You have to be very purposeful here in making these decisions. Do you want to unpack that a little bit for us? Your decision number 1 is play by the rules. Well, some of us don't like rules, but as you point out in the book, they're pretty handy, actually.
Yeah. Like at a 4-way stop, at a red light, you might think, I hate those rules, but boy, those rules are certainly helpful. And think of that in marriage, just like if you were playing a game, football, soccer, it could be anything, basketball, tennis, but the rules kept changing, you'd be like, this is a very frustrating game. So when it comes to marriage, it's not a game you against your spouse. It's a game, how can we keep playing this thing called marriage till death do us part? How can we keep hitting that ball back to each other and have fun in the process? And part of that is playing by the rules. And what I'm talking about is thinking of like, what does God say about marriage? What are the commandments that I need to be following to realize, oh, this is a vow. This is a decision. This is a husband and wife for life. And if that is a decision I've made, and that's the rule, like we are going to stay together no matter what happens, we're going to stay together. And then you create like, okay, how are we going to make that possible? There are rules like you're not going to cheat on your spouse, right? You're going to care about your spouse. You're not going to yell or berate your spouse. So every couple are going to have, some of them are spoken rules that you have set. Some of them are unspoken rules that you just kind of, this is the way we do it. I know one couple, they say we never fight ugly, if we're going to fight, but we never fight ugly. So there are rules of engagement. And once you decide those, pre-decide what is and what is not cool in your relationship, that helps a whole lot. And, one of our rules was to eat together every day. We call that the power hour. It's not this legalistic thing where it's like, oh my word, I'm starving, but I can't put, bite in my mouth because my spouse isn't here. It's not like that. It's not like, oh no, we're out of town. What do we do? So obviously, if your work schedule does not allow it, we get that. But if your work schedule allows it and you're both in the same town at the same time, that it would be the normal thing to eat together every single day.
That actually makes a lot of sense. We see that throughout Scripture as well.
Yeah.
Eating together as a family with the disciples and so forth. Jesus did that. And there's something that seems to happen when you're around food, you're all enjoying it together, and conversation breaks out and you start to share, the ups and downs of life and so forth, and it bonds you together. At least that's my discovery. Now, in our family, that's been a centerpiece, now that, okay, we have a whole swack of kids, and looking back, going, that's been a treasure, and I think our kids
Yes.
really appreciate it as well. So you're saying this even before you have kids. One of your things that, or anybody could do that, is to say, hey,
Totally.
we're spending time together. We're aiming for this. Yeah, it's not going to be
Because you have
100%.
to eat, right? Like the cue is there.
Yeah,
Like I'm hungry,
yeah.
I have to eat. So the cue is there. And then when you are together, imagine if you don't eat together every day, then it's like, when do you find the time to connect? Because you end up doing, your own things in the evening. And so that dinner table is a really lovely way to make sure that you're doing it. I think my husband and I have been married for 26 years and we think, I've spent at least 10,000 hours eating with that man, So it's like over time, the compound togetherness, like it really helps your marriage.
Of course, when people get married, there's lots of feelings, and they're good feelings. They're wonderful. Those are,
Wonderful feelings.
God created emotions and feelings. It's a good thing, but we don't live life by feelings. And you pointed out in the book here that we don't go by feelings, but you actually go by the instructions, the commands of God. So he's given us some outlines here, for some guidelines for a marriage that we need to actually take seriously, right?
I remember when we were first married, you're just so enamored with that person. And I remember thinking, I don't want to eat dinner with anybody else but you. Like if we went with a friend, it's like, no, I have to have you all to myself. And I honestly, for months, was like that. And so, Dr. Chapman, we both know him. He writes the love languages. We've written Screen Kids together. He would say, Arlene, if people were like that all the time, can you imagine we would never be productive? We would never be able to do anything else. So it's like those strong feelings are there, but they are replaced, with a different feeling that you're not so like, oh, I have to be with myself 24 hours a day. And that's good. And it's okay. And so to realize our feelings are wonderful, but not necessarily to trust them or to base the health of our relationship on the feelings. A lot of times we have to think first before we feel, check what are we believing? What stories are we telling ourselves about our spouse? And then we also have to act. Sometimes you have to just act and hug your spouse, even though you don't feel like it. But after you hug them and hold them, let's say for 3 seconds, then your feeling of warmth and love will come. So it's like, don't trust your feelings, do good behaviors, have positive thoughts, prayerful thoughts toward your spouse, and the feelings will follow.
For sure. And you talk about kids as well. You have a number of children. And, of course, your marriage changes once you
Yes.
get these little rascals in there, right?
Right.
And, they're hard work, but that's amazing how much joy they bring. And then the grandkids come and thumbs up. It's pretty
Yes,
good,
it
I'll
sounds
tell you
pretty
what.
amazing. Yes.
Yeah. So, but you write about the fact that children actually, and some people may disagree, but I think you're absolutely right, are second to your spouse. I mean, yeah, I just think, wow, you love your kids so much. It's true, but there's a slight, again, it's just that
Yes.
oxygen that comes down from, in the plane when
Yes.
you got to take care of
That's a
yourself
good
first, take care of your
analogy.
marriage first, and then the children come, will be healthy afterward, I think.
Yeah, we are living in times where we're very child-centered. So the whole home is
Yeah.
poised around the child. Is the child in the activity? Is the child making friends? Is the child happy? Oh, the child doesn't want to go on vacation to here, so we have to go where the child wants to go. And obviously, I don't mean the child. I mean your precious, mine are Ethan, Noel, and Lucy,
Yeah.
and we love them to death, and we, so I'm not saying you don't love your children. Of course you love your children.
Yeah.
But the idea is, what? Let's say you have a new activity and you're wondering like, oh man, should we do this? Can we fit just one more thing in? Rarely do we ask ourselves, well, what's this going to do to the marriage? What's this going to do to the tone of the home? Are we still going to be able to go on date night once in a while? And by once in a while, I mean once a month, twice a month. Like, are we going to still be able to do that? Or are we going to get so busy that we can't even do that anymore? So that needs to be part of the discussion, because the truth of the matter is, if you're looking at your 7-year-old, you have to think someday, I'm going to be your extended family, right? It doesn't seem possible, but someday, should that child marry
Yeah.
and have their own family, you're going to become extended family, and you and your husband, you and your wife, you are the ones that are going to be the family. So that is the relationship to take care of, so that when the kids grow up and they leave the home, I have 2 in college and 1 in high school now. So when that time comes, you and your spouse are still friends. You and your spouse still enjoy being together. It's not going to be a stressor like, oh no, the buffer zone is gone. The children, oh no, what everything has been around for the last 24 years is gone. The kids are gone. What do we do now? You don't want to find yourself in that situation. And if you're in that situation now, it's not too late to rebuild, to find common interests with your spouse, to almost date again and learn to like each other once again. It's not too late to do that.
Yeah, no, we need to encourage people never to give up. All right, yeah, keep at it.
Yes.
A big part of this decision number one portion of the book is being honest with one another, and I think that's so important. Building like a safe place, right? So you can actually talk about some things that are maybe a little touchy, a little sensitive.
That's right.
But is that trust level there to do that? I think it needs to be, right?
Yeah, and if you're not there yet, then that's something to work on. And so just think, before someone can open up to you, they need to know it's safe, and a lot of times we think of physical safety when that's important, but emotional safety, spiritual safety, I'm not going to be judged. You feel it if you say a story to anyone and they're kind of looking at you like, oh, I can't believe you did that, right? And then you realize, okay, you are not a good person to tell these stories to. So you really have to work on, maybe you have to work on your poker face, your game face of like, oh, wow, even though you're thinking, how stupid, I can't believe you did that. You have to work on being that safe person to say, you can tell me anything, I can handle it. And it's also an openness to be corrected, an openness, right, to accept criticism. And obviously, if you are the one giving the hard word, like maybe you see something in your spouse that you really think, that's got to change. When you're giving that hard word, you do that with grace and with compassion. So, when my husband and I were dating, not even engaged, he says to me on a date, there's something I want to tell you, but I just don't know how to say it. And I'm thinking, Paul, I was like, I hope he is not proposing this way, And he says, you have these hairs on your upper lip, and I'm wondering if you've ever thought of electrolysis.
You really said that,
He really said that. And I was like, I really haven't thought of that, but wow, look at the time. I got to go. So I left. I went straight to the bathroom mirror. I looked at these little hairs that were on top of my lip that I'd really never noticed. I'm not like this girly girl spa, always at the, getting treatment for things, So I'm looking, and then all of a sudden I realized, oh my word, I do have hair on my lip. Like, this is so mortifying. So I look, at that time it was the yellow pages, and I'm looking through the yellow pages, laser, right? So I get these little hairs zapped and do the thing. And my then boyfriend, James, was like, wow, I could. So that really made my stock go up, because in his mind, he was thinking, wow, and he was really nervous to tell this to me, but he thought, if I cannot bring it up, then how are we going to potentially get married? Like, could we then talk about children, or like where to live, or your finances? Like, those are really more important than like a little bit of hair on your lip. But us women, we are very sensitive about our appearance. So that was very shaky ground he was going out on. But that's the point of, what? You can tell me anything. And that really has been an undergirding thing in our marriage, that if you want to talk to me about a tough subject, I am open. You can tell me. Now, you might not be able to respond in kind right then, but maybe just be quiet. And then later on, you could talk about it, but have that atmosphere of, you could tell me anything.
Yeah, that's an amazing example. I don't think I'll ever forget that one. It's like, wow, he had guts, and you had, God gave you a lot of grace there to respond, in a, non-freaking out way, right?
And see, I was blessed. My lip has been good ever since.
Wow. All right. If you're just tuning in here, I want to put a plug in for this book. MakingMarriageEasier.com is the website. How to love and like your spouse for life. All right. So do check it out. MakingMarriageEasier.com. Arlene Pellicane, our guest today. And so the second part of the book is decision number 2, giving thanks every day. I believe it's 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 18, thereabouts, talks about this is the will of God for you, that you be thankful in all these things. You're like, wow, I want to find God's will. And he says, be thankful.
It's right there.
That's maybe a wake-up call for us sometimes. Go, man, am I thankful? So how does that tie in with marriage here, to be thankful?
Yeah. Kind of observe how you are with your spouse. What are the kinds of words that come out of your mouth? What are the thoughts that are running through your brain? And just watch yourself, because, when the children of Israel got themselves in trouble in the wilderness, it wasn't because they made another calf, and it wasn't because they, were in adultery or things like this, they were grumbling. They were like, this food isn't good enough. This cloud by day, fire by night, we're kind of tired of it. Like, we're kind of tired of this. And it's like in our marriages, we were very thankful to get married. I don't think there's one person on their wedding day that doesn't say, I'm so thankful that I met you. I'm so thankful God finally brought you to me. We were all very, very grateful for the person that came into our lives. And so to rekindle that, to say every day, I am thankful for the spouse that God has given. And maybe you may not feel that, but you start that way. You praise God. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for my spouse. Thank you for the good that I'm going to see in him or her today. And then just start actually thanking your spouse. Oh, thank you. You know what? It's not easy getting up every day and going to work. Thank you for doing that. Hey, this meal was delicious. Thank you so much. You know what? You pick up the kids every day. You never complain about that. Thank you so much. Just look for ways to thank your spouse. Be grateful for the things they do. And all of a sudden, you're going to see the atmosphere of your home start to change. You're going to start thinking like, wow, my husband's a pretty great guy. Where before you were like, oh my word, he can't do anything right, because you were looking for things to complain about, because you can find those too. So look for things to be thankful for. And as you just said, it's the will of God. So this is a good thing to be thankful.
Yeah, I think it's our default, isn't it? Default application here is to see the cup as being half, empty rather than half full. So we have the tendency to notice the mistakes and zero in on those rather than to say, hey, what about the good things? So maybe, when you find yourself into one of those downward spirals, good time to get out a little notebook and just say, hey, Lord, show me what I can be thankful for in my spouse here, and actually write them down. And then, and encourage them in that. And, you're going to reap what you sow, and hopefully that'll, be contagious, and they're going to start seeing some good things in you as well. I wonder sometimes...
I want to quickly add, Paul, my husband actually did that one week. He wrote down like one thing, like Monday, and he wrote something down. Tuesday, he wrote something down. And then on the Friday, he shared it with me. And it would say things like, Tuesday, you picked up Lucy, and you always do that, and talk with her and listen to her. That's great. So it's like he wrote it down and showed it to me. And I was like, wow. So even just something so simple like that, your spouse would really enjoy that.
I think so. I think sometimes we have unrealistic expectations going into marriage as well. We have, marriage, happiness. It's all going to be roses, right? And boy, and then when our spouse doesn't kind of measure up to that, the stuff can hit the fan then, right? And we start comparing. Maybe there's that comparison trap. Oh well, Mary's husband, look at him, or whatever, and doesn't go very well. Just pretend
whatever measure you're using, that it was used towards you. Oh, great. Now your spouse gets to say, well, so-and-so's does this. Well, you don't do that. You don't make the gourmet meal. You don't make this amount of money. You don't look like that. Like, who wants to be, right, compared in that way? So know you have to take what you dish out. So dish out grace, and then you can get grace back.
Yeah, for sure. You write about, again, our spouse isn't the one who is really, in one sense, designed to fulfill our marriage. Ultimately, it's God, right?
Yes.
And so we've got to be always looking upward. He is the anchor for any successful long-term marriage. And I think there has to be this attitude of, you don't actually owe me anything. I'm here, to love you unconditionally. Yeah. And and the only way we could do that is, again, pressing into the Lord and having Him just fill us with His Spirit and getting to know Him more and more, and we become more like Him.
Yeah, I was trying to use my computer one day, and it was just like not working. And then I'm like, what is happening? And I realized, oh, duh, my mouse is upside down. So it was like all I had to do was turn it around. And it's the same thing with marriage. You just have to put God as the center. And when you're struggling, God, show me what to do. Lord, how do I obey you? What are you showing me to obey? And that'll put your mouse correct, and God will just start doing things in your marriage. And it is, as you're saying, the start is, being thankful and serving your spouse. That's another key decision in my book, Making Marriage Easier, that you decide, hey, this is the way that the Lord has designed it, that we are to serve one another. The more mature person serves. A lot of times we think, oh, if I serve, they're going to walk all over me. I am the one who have to serve again. Well, the more mature person, the more mature we get in God, the more you become a servant like Jesus. So it is it is this thing. And again, I'm not talking about abuse. I'm not talking about like,
Yeah.
you have to, totally, never have a personality and just let the other person. No, that's not what I'm talking about. It's the attitude of like, how can I help you today? And be willing to be that person.
For sure. And I know some of us have, we're all made up different giftings, different personalities, and some, like look at our kids. We have some that are just naturally servant-hearted, and they'll be the first ones, something spills, they're cleaning it up before I've even thought of it, going, oh, maybe somebody should, they're already on it,
Yes.
That's good. But it's beyond that, isn't it? I mean, it's a hard attitude, we need to serve one another. Of course, Jesus did that at the Last Supper, washing feet and so forth, and giving us, that example to follow. If you want to be a leader, if you want to be the greatest, serve somebody,
That's
right? And that's decision number 3 in your book, serving your spouse and so forth. And you in that segment there, I think that's where you write about spouse versus phone.
Yes.
I just have to laugh at that. I think,
Right.
yeah, okay,
Yes.
been there, been guilty. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, we got to start realizing, we would never have a third wheel, a third person with us at dinner. We'd be like, that's weird. But we'll have a phone, and that phone is way more distracting than another person sitting there, because as we know now, that phone is wired with everything that suits your fancy, your favorite movies, your favorite sports, the headline news that's going to get you, your social media feed, YouTube, all of it is just wired towards your interest to get your attention and to keep it. So we just have to have that kind of glaring eye towards our phone and realize that you could be interrupting the quality time that I should be spending, could be having with my spouse. And also understand that expectation. I can't expect my spouse to entertain me and amuse me and keep me on the edge of my seat like my phone, right? So it's like, you got to go back to, okay, a real live person is in fact more interesting than my phone. And we do have to go back to that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely some wisdom there. You talk about the little foxes that come into our lives. And stuff happens, right? In marriage and in life, at work, wherever, but especially in marriage, we make mistakes. And when that happens, I guess, how do we respond to those things? And again, maybe that's an area where you, as you said earlier, where we need to make a decision ahead of time that we've been intentional, saying, okay, when this happens, and it will, right, how am I going to respond to these little foxes?
Yes.
Often, of course, it's anger, right, and frustration.
Yeah. I was eating this cheese, and on the label of the cheese, it's like, this particular cheese is marbly. So if it has little crunchy things, like that's how it's supposed to be. So then when you eat it, you're not like, well, that was weird. And it's the same in marriage. Like your spouse is going to do things that upset you or that are wrong or sin against you. Sometimes it's on purpose. Sometimes it's not on purpose. Just the same way we will do it to them, right? Say an unkind word, like yell at them, whatever it is, do something. So just know, okay, that's going to happen. We're going to need to forgive one another. And I'm going to pre-decide, because God has forgiven me my great sins against him, that, hey, we are imperfect people, and I'm going to pre-decide I will forgive you. And so it is this idea, if it's a small thing like the little cheese, we forgive quickly. Like, hey, let's not drag this down. Let's not hold this forever. I forgive you, And if it's a big thing, it's the kind of thing like, this really matters. You're thinking about it all the time. 5 years from now, this will matter. Then this is a point of really working through getting to that point of forgiveness. Maybe this needs counseling. Maybe this needs you both reading a book about forgiveness and really talking about it, or studying the scriptures on forgiveness. So I'm not saying to just brush these big things under the rug and just say, I'm sorry, I forgive you, and move on. You may need to do a lot more work than that. But the attitude is, we will get to that point. We will decide to forgive.
Mm-hmm. All right. Appreciate that. Again, the book is called Making Marriage Easier, How to Love and Like Your Spouse for Life. It's available at makingmarriageeasier.com. Decision number 4, again, your book broken up into 4 different parts here of decision making. And you say, take fun seriously. I like it. You talk about being playful again, and and you kind of you look back into your when you first met, even
Yes.
before you were married, you did a lot of fun things together, and then often it seems that kind of fades, after a while in marriage, right?
That's right. So, you think about it, you got married because it was fun, because you were doing
Yeah.
fun things together. And if you think, oh, well, we can't have fun, it's too expensive. We don't have time to have fun. We'll have fun on our vacation in 4 months. We'll have fun when the kids are out of the house. You cannot do that. That's why I say you have to take fun seriously. Like there's too much of a gap. So you want your
Right.
fun gap to be shortened and small, so that when you say to yourself, hey, when was the last time we had fun? Or you ask your spouse this question, you have an answer like, oh, last Saturday, that was really fun when we did this. So you want to schedule fun. It does not have to be expensive. On makingmarriageeasier.com, I have free, date night ideas, things like that. It doesn't have to be expensive. It might be just you guys watching an old clip of your children from 20 years ago that will just completely crack you up. It might be like doing something, just going out and getting ice cream and swapping ice cream and whatever, and just being funny. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be this big thing, but that you're having fun together still. So you've got to make time for date night. There's a list of activities in my book. It's a long list. So if you can come up with, let's say, 2 that you both think are okay, because that's the hard thing, finding something you both think is fun still, but
Right.
find those things and do them,
Yeah.
because they will go a long way.
And of course, for Christian couples, I mean, that was one of the things that drew you to your husband. You just loved to see him worship the Lord. He was all
Yeah.
in. I mean, again, we mentioned it earlier. Any final thoughts here? God needs to be first in a marriage. So maybe you need to schedule time to pray together, read the
Yes.
Word together.
Yeah. And to realize that having fun, this is not a secular thing. This is a sacred thing. It's a joy. It's
Interesting.
having joy with one another, and there is gladness when you are with the Lord. So yes, pray together. Yes, go to church regularly together. If you've gotten out of the habit of going in person because of COVID, this is a great time. Go back in person, because you need the fellowship with other people. And through the different seasons of your marriage, it's so beautiful if you have a community of people around you that study God's word, that will give good, wise Christian counsel,
Yeah.
that will pray with you, that you can be a support to them. That's so important to a marriage. So
I could jump in there,
yeah,
and we'll
please.
leave it there, but that's a good way to leave it right
Yes,
there,
go
putting
to
God
church.
first. Again, ArlenePellicane.com or MakingMarriageEasier.com. I encourage you to get this book into your library. Thanks for watching WizeUp.ca. God bless.